There are 7 bottles sitting under your kitchen sink right now, maybe 8. And if you add up what you paid for all of them this year, you are probably looking at somewhere between $50 and $80. That is just this year. That is not counting the years before it. Now here is the number nobody talks about. 90% of what is inside every single one of those bottles is plain tap water, colored, perfumed, thickened with a foaming agent, and sold back to you at somewhere between 300 and 500% markup. You're not buying a cleaning product. You're buying water with a label on it, and the label is doing all the work. Here's what made me realize this. A few years back, I ended up in a farmhouse kitchen in rural Ohio, the kind of house where nothing gets thrown away and nothing gets bought that does not need to be. The woman of the house had just finished washing dishes for a family of 8. No foam, no perfume, no blue bottle. 1 small glass jar on the counter, a wooden spoon, and a rag. The plates came out clean. Not just clean, they squeaked when she rinsed them. That high, sharp squeak you almost never hear anymore. I asked her what was in the jar. She said soap, the way someone might say bread, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. She had never bought a bottle of dish soap in her life. Her mother had not either. Her grandmother had not. 3 generations of spotless dishes and not a single dollar spent on what the rest of us buy without thinking every few weeks. I drove home that evening with a small jar she gave me and a recipe written in pencil on the back of a folded piece of paper. I have been using it for years now. My household dish soap budget for the entire last 12 months was $11. Most of that was a box of washing soda that is still half full. But here is what really got under my skin. This is not obscure knowledge. This is not something that was hidden in a vault or lost in a fire. It was published. It was taught. Agricultural extension programs across the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic printed guides on homemade dish paste from the 1890s through the 1930s. A 1918 bulletin from Pennsylvania State College laid out the entire formula in 5 short paragraphs. It was written down because every practical household in the country already knew it, and the extension agent was simply recording what worked. A properly made dish paste, the bulletin noted, should last a family of 6, roughly 6 months, and cost less than a pound of butter. Then something changed. Not the chemistry. The chemistry has not changed since Babylon. What changed was the radio. In 1933, a company with a large advertising budget launched a drama program on American radio. They called it a soap opera, not as a joke, but because the soap was the sponsor and the opera was the vehicle. They were not selling cleaning. They were selling a feeling. They were selling the idea that a modern woman used modern products, and that the jar on her shelf was a sign she had not kept up. By 1946, synthetic detergents were on the shelf. By 1949, the first liquid dish soap had the largest marketing budget any household product had ever seen in this country. Within 15 years, the American kitchen had been systematically convinced, through somewhere north of $2 billion in advertising, that the homemade recipe was primitive, old-fashioned, maybe even unsanitary. The extension bulletins stopped being printed. The home economics classes dropped the lesson. Mothers stopped teaching daughters how to grate the soap and dissolve the soda. An entire century of practical knowledge was buried in less than 2 generations. Buried not because it stopped working, never stopped working, but because there was no profit in it for anyone. The traditional farming communities in places like Holmes County and Lancaster County never heard the radio pitch. They kept making the paste. 3 generations later, they spend almost nothing on dish soap, and their dishes are cleaner than ours. Now here is the recipe. You need 4 things, and you almost certainly have 3 of them already. 1 bar of plain unscented soap. Fels Naphtha, Zote, or Kirk's Castile all work. 1 cup of washing soda, which is sodium carbonate, not baking soda. Find it in the laundry aisle for under $5 a box. 2 quarts of hot tap water. Not boiling, just hot. And 1 tablespoon of plain white vinegar. Grate the bar of soap into fine flakes on a cheese grater. Drop the flakes into a saucepan with 1 quart of the hot water and stir over low heat until they dissolve completely. That takes about 8 minutes. In a separate bowl, dissolve the cup of washing soda into the 2nd quart of hot water and stir until the water runs clear. Combine the 2 liquids in a half-gallon mason jar. Add the tablespoon of vinegar, cap it, and shake for 10 seconds. Set it aside. In 4 hours, it will thicken into a soft yellow paste about the consistency of warmed honey. That is your dish soap for the next 5 to 6 months. Here is why it works. Bar soap is a long-chain fatty acid molecule. One end grabs grease, the other end grabs water. When you wash a greasy plate, the molecule buries its grease end in the oil, faces its water end outward, and lifts the grease off the surface and into the rinse. That is how soap has worked for 4,000 years. Washing soda does something different, and this is the piece most people miss. American tap water, especially across the Midwest and Southwest, is loaded with dissolved calcium and magnesium. Those minerals are what causes soap to leave a chalky film on your glasses, and that odd slimy feeling on your hands when the soap will not rinse clean. The slime is not leftover soap. It is soap that bonded with the minerals in your water and turned useless. Washing soda binds the calcium and magnesium first, locks them away before they can interfere, and leaves the soap molecule free to do its actual job. The tablespoon of vinegar at the end pulls the pH back down, keeps the paste from going brittle on the shelf, and keeps it smelling clean instead of sharp. One safety note that matters: never combine this paste, or washing soda, or any homemade soap mixture with chlorine bleach. Soap and bleach together can produce chlorine gas. That is genuinely dangerous. This paste does not need bleach and never did. Leave it out entirely. Use 1 teaspoon per sink of dishes. Not a tablespoon, a teaspoon. The paste is concentrated, and if you use too much, you will spend more time rinsing than washing. The first week, you will notice there is almost no foam, and this is where most people give up. That is a trained response, not a real one. Foam is a marketing decision, not a cleaning mechanism. Detergent companies have been adding foaming agents since the late 1950s, specifically because their own research showed that American consumers would not believe a product was cleaning unless they could see suds. Suds do not lift grease. Soap lifts grease. The paste works quietly, and the signal that it worked is not foam. It is the squeak the plates make when you rinse them. Now, the part the internet has not figured out yet. After washing, fill the other side of your sink with cold water, cold, not warm, and drop in 2 strips of dried lemon rind. Swirl once with your hand and let it sit for 30 seconds. Then dip each dish, glass, and piece of silverware into the cold rinse before setting it in the rack to air dry. Do not towel dry. Here is the chemistry behind this. Hot wash water, no matter how clean, leaves a thin layer of mineral residue on every surface as it dries. That is the cloudy film on your glasses, the haze on your plates. It is not age, and it is not dirt. It is calcium carbonate depositing fresh every single wash. Lemon peel contains a compound concentrated in the white pith, and the oil glands called D-limonene, which is a natural mineral binder. When you steep the dried rind in cold water, D-limonene releases slowly into the rinse and pulls the free calcium off the surface of your dishes. It has to be cold water because the oils release slowly and evenly in cold and flash off too fast in hot. You're not rinsing, you're actively stripping mineral deposits at a level you cannot see. That is why the dishes shine. That is why there is no film. And that is why these households have never owned a bottle of Rinse-Aid. A 1934 field study by a researcher named Hannah Hostetler, interviewing traditional farm women across Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, found that 69 out of 73 households surveyed used dried citrus peel in the final rinse. The reason they gave, in their own words, was that it makes the glass speak. 1 dried lemon rind strips mineral residue from roughly 40 sink loads before it loses its potency. Then you compost it and dry another. It costs a fraction of a penny per load, and it does what a $4 bottle of Rinse-Aid does, only better, because the Rinse-Aid leaves its own residue and the lemon leaves nothing but clean. If your water is very hard, most of the Midwest, Texas, and the Southwest, you may see a faint haze on glassware the first week. Do not stop. Just add an extra half teaspoon of washing soda to the jar. The sodium carbonate binds the extra calcium and the haze disappears. That is the kind of small adjustment your great-grandmother would have made automatically because she understood her water and her soap and the relationship between them. We lost that instinct. It comes back faster than you would expect. Here is what I want to leave you with. You are not buying dish soap because dish soap is necessary. You're buying it because someone decided your grandmother's recipe was beneath you and then spent 80 years and tens of billions of dollars making sure you forgot it. The recipe did not go anywhere. The chemistry did not change. The knowledge was simply made to feel old-fashioned until enough generations passed that nobody remembered to question the bottle. 1 jar, 1 rind on the windowsill, 1 teaspoon per sink, 5 months of clean dishes for less than $2. The next time you open that cabinet and see 1 glass jar where there used to be 7 plastic bottles, you will know exactly when you stopped paying for water.